Welcome. We're here to continue the conversation on innovation in action. So just to get us kind of in the mindset, I want everyone to think about the first time you remember answering that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Now, when you were thinking about that then, and when you're thinking about it right now, you probably were not contemplating the skills that you would need in order to achieve that goal. But the reality is the skills that we needed 20 years ago, the skills that we needed 5 years ago, and the skills that we'll need a year from now are changing rapidly. So we are going to talk about the need and opportunity for skilling and reskilling throughout our careers. In January, Pearson and Microsoft announced a partnership to address this global challenge of rapid technology shifts and the opportunity for skilling in the age of AI. I'm joined today by Todd, who is a general manager of global learning at Microsoft, and Vishaal Gupta, who is president of enterprise learning and skills at Pearson. And we're here to talk about that challenge and that opportunity. So first, Vishaal, we'll start with you. Could you talk a little bit about some of the major disruptions in the world of learning and how that impacts learners, workers, and organizations?
Great, thanks, Ted. So firstly, super excited about our partnership, and I'm sure Todd will also speak about what we are doing together with Microsoft, which is extremely exciting. But let me just take a step back. And give you a little bit of context as we see it today. So the world is changing rapidly when you think about skills, primarily powered or driven by all the changes around AI. Now, there are lots of reports out there. I'll reference a couple. There is a report from Convening, which talks about the fact that, about 80 million jobs by 2030 will go unfulfilled because of lack of skills, right? Then there is a World Economic Forum report, which really says that 60% of organizations today believe AI transformation is absolutely imperative for them. And yet, only 22% feel they are ready for it from a skill set. The same research, they are also calling out the fact that even today, when organizations are hiring, hiring decisions across functions, not just in tech, but across functions, AI skills are a really important part of those hiring decisions. And then there's a third report, which is actually a Pearson report, which we call it, a report which is all about the learn to earn gap that is getting created in the US, particularly because of the churn that happens of people who are into learning in universities and colleges, and because of lack of skills, they tend to drop out and not get into the workforce. And that is causing the US economy $1 trillion today. And this is a report called Lost in Transition. I would encourage you to have a look. So the question we were asking ourselves is that what is not working in the world of learning and skills? Now, organizations are spending quite a money on this topic, right? I mean, the research again shows that within US alone, last year, $200 billion was spent in workforce learning, and yet the results are not there, right? And there's several reasons for that, all the way from the fact that, today, learning is still not as much of a CEO topic, and the business value topic is still not fully addressed as to what business value does learning and skilling really drives. That's one topic. There is a whole topic around, learning not being personalized. So the engagement of employees in learning platforms has not been high enough. There is another challenge around the fragmented learning ecosystem in terms of the technology stacks. There is a whole bunch of products that people have kind of implemented, makes it extremely hard to make progress at pace when you think about skilling. So these are some of the challenges that we see around us, and we have worked with so many different organizations who have been speaking to us about this. So to address that, we have been really thinking about 5 different topics, and which I wanted to kind of share with you. And again, Microsoft is a big part of solving some of these. First and foremost is around how do we truly make learning personalized, right? And the idea here is, every individual should get their own personalized learning pathway, and that should depend on your current skills. What are your skills for the future and the career path you're taking. It should depend on what are the different certifications that you've already done. It should also depend on what are your soft skills, things like creativity, things like collaboration, and it should depend on how you consume learning. So all of those signals, as we call them, should actually generate a learning pathway for every employee, and that should be constantly updated as employees going through the learning. And AI, by the way, allows you to do that. So that's one topic. Second topic, which is very connected to this, we call it learning in the flow of work. Now, this is really important because we believe learning really happens when people are doing things at work. And you would have noticed it with yourself, right? I mean, how often do you learn on a learning platform as opposed to learning when you're doing things? And so this is a complex topic, but how do we introduce learning while people are using their key work platforms? It could be Teams, it could be a CRM platform, all of this. So that's really a really important topic. So how do we introduce learning there? The third topic is around content, right? What does learning mean going forward in terms of content? Now, there has been a lot of content out there, long form content, video content. We believe there is a huge opportunity to move towards what we call as bite-sized, snackable content. And again, content which is powered by AI, which means that a user should be able to engage with the content as you're watching it or as you're consuming the content. And then we are trying to move increasingly towards business content as opposed to tech content. So that's a really important thing for us. And the last but not the least is really around how do we use learning not just as an employee topic, but also a topic for our customers to grow their business. And what that really means is that how can customers really skill up their customers, their ecosystem, which in turn accelerates the adoption of their products and their technology out there in the market. So those are some of the disruptions we are seeing, which we are, by the way, working a lot with Microsoft.
Yeah, thank you. I think what I really take away from that is that between the reports, the data, your experience, there's this gap between the preparedness and the skills that people have for career, and also the return on investment in skilling. And yeah, so it's great to hear these examples. So Todd, the partnership that we talked about, Microsoft and Pearson are collaborating on co-pilots, agents, and AI tools. Can you just talk a little bit about the role that they play in helping prepare people for the workforce?
Yeah, look, first of all, just super proud and just love the partnership that we have. Not to romance it too much, but you have an industry leader in skills and education and credentialing, and then obviously with Microsoft, we're really proud of the lead position that we have in AI. And so, many of the things that he mentioned around ensuring that, skilling comes in the flow of work, that you don't have to pop out and do something differently. Also, that the skilling is super personalized, that is all leveraging Copilot, which is something that we're really, really proud of. But ultimately, it's really, ensuring that we leverage the strength of Pearson, who understands the skills that are needed today and the future, with also embracing the technology innovations that we see in the future at Microsoft.
Great. So you mentioned the bite-size or snackable content. We're coming up on lunch. Could you give some examples of where you're seeing that with some existing customers today?
Yeah. So Todd, you want to go for it?
You go for it.
Yeah. So the way we are seeing this is the whole concept of bite-size or snackable content. We are finding it so much more relevant for business users in an enterprise. So when you think about people in sales or customer services or marketing, and when they want to use AI, for particularly in the Microsoft context, they want to use Copilot. They are looking for very short, snackable content. And we really talk about less than a minute, right? Less than a minute. And that needs also to be something that they can engage with. And as they complete that, we are talking about giving them some sort of a micro assessment, and a micro credential. So we are actually going to give them some learning credits. So as they kind of complete that short piece of content, they can actually get assessed and get credentialized in the same flow rather than coming out of Copilot. So that's really what the flow of work also talks about, learning in the flow of work talks about, and the snackable content, how it comes together.
And then many times, my role at Microsoft, I'm responsible for skilling all our internal sales force as well as our commercial customers worldwide. And many times when we have this conversation around snackable content and quick content, very quickly, someone in the room usually will say, well, what about deeply technical content that you can't consume within 30 seconds or 45 seconds? In this scenario, we look at the snackable content to be more of like a movie trailer, right? And so that whets the appetite, that really gets the curiosity going, and then then the learner will just have a deeper engagement with the full trailer.
Yeah, those are great examples. So, as we zoom out, there's the sort of, just in time in the flow of work type of training, the deeper content that you're referring to. How do you see AI skilling leading to broader organizational change and transformation in business practices?
Yeah, look, first of all, I think it always starts in the C-suite. the CXO, the executive level has to be, super engaged and understanding that, I mentioned yesterday on a panel, I'll say it again, in the lotto, there's a term that says, like, you can't win if you don't play. In the era of AI, you can't participate if you don't skill. And that starts at all the way at the top, and then it creates the environment and the culture within the organization to be able to embrace that and then drive the curiosity and the process improvement leveraging AI throughout. But the environment has to be set from the top down. And tools that we're working together on, whether it be our agents, whether it be the Copilot plugs in, that's going to really enable that through any organization.
And to add to what Todd said, I think the challenge, and we see this all the time, and by the way, Pearson is also not fully solved for it, is that if you think about the business value that skilling programs deliver to a CEO or to a CHRO, it's around 2 or 3 dimensions, right? Firstly, what kind of productivity gains can you deliver, right, inside an organization? And people have all kinds of number, 20%, 30% productivity. We have a skills report, which we will shortly and kind of release, which is really talking about, particularly with certain types of jobs around tech, around customer services, you can actually get significant productivity gains. But that's something that the C-suite is really expecting, especially in today's environment, because the markets have been difficult and people are really saying, what kind of productivity gains? That's on one side. On the other side, how does it improve my customer experience? So as a company, as I'm talking to customers, by having a skilled workforce, right? How do I make sure, how do I get better NPS scores? That's another angle. And the last but not the least, which I mentioned earlier, is does it mean incremental revenues? So is there a connection between better skills and revenues, right? And for me and for my ecosystem. So that's something, again, which is an important part.
I would also add for organizations, when you think about this technology and harnessing it and ensuring that we have the right skills, part of it also is expectation setting, right? Because there are use cases in AI that are truly transformational, that literally like blow your socks off. But there's also so many that are incremental, but at aggregate across an organization are transformational. And so having those types of conversations at your C-level and ensuring that they understand that the way that we celebrate the transformational use cases, we also celebrate the incremental ones that grow at aggregate.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. All right, we got some new microphone here. How about thinking about from the role of the learners or the employees and the organizations, and what are you seeing to help increase their sort of willingness or interest or enthusiasm for adopting these tools?
Honestly, it's gamification is a big one of them, right? Really just creating ways and positive energy and recognizing folks that are able to reinvent processes within the organization. But again, the environment has to be conducive for that type of behavior. And so, like, one, if you gamify it, you encourage people to try and fail and really experiment with that organization. The second is to really be honest about the fact of what the skills are going to be required for that industry. And this is where this work that we have together really is beneficial, because all the employees need to understand that the landscape is going to continue to change, and that we need to have skills that are future-proof. And many of those skills they may have, right? Those are human-centric skills like empathy, negotiation, communication, and those are some of the skills that we really need to ensure the workforce understands.
Yeah, I love the idea of taking that from fear of AI is going to take my job, or these agents I don't understand and I don't trust, and actually turning that into an advantage and a motivator for the employees. That's great. Vishaal, is there anything else you'd add?
No, I was about to actually literally say what Todd just said. So this also has, with employees, and this is where, again, going back to the idea of learning in the flow of work, I think it's important to really, on one side, incentivize people. We believe that we have been in this model of certifications and this model of doing this long form certifications. We call them kind of high stake certifications. I think in a lot of tech world, it's going to move to more towards low-stake certifications, micro assessments I was talking about, because that gives people a very good credit for what they are actually doing, and they're learning by doing. I think that's a great thing. And the other thing, which I think Todd already mentioned, is this idea of learning to learn. How do you can really strengthen that muscle, which is really about soft skills, right? About how do you revise things, what kind of creativity you bring to play. So all of that, I think, is the other element of motivating your workforce to actually get on the journey.
Absolutely. So I'm hearing again, we've got this gap between the skills that people have and the skills that are needed in the workplace of today, frankly, not just the future. Agentic AI is here, and we're enthusiastic about that. The pace of change is exponential. So what's one thing, as many of us will be back here next year, and the world will be a different place. What would you offer to people who are here on what they can do, what they can start when they leave the conference today or tomorrow, so that they're in a better place next year when they come back?
Yeah, so I would just say learning starts with each one of us, right? I mean, I think it comes down to, and with Microsoft, there are already a bunch of learning resources, learning tools that I would encourage you to have a look. Again, it's work in progress, but there's some really good stuff already out there. And then, of course, in the broader world as well, there is so much of learning resources out there. So while all the technology is coming along, and this is what I tell my team, that learning starts with each one of us, right? If you're curious, you have to be literally, yesterday we said in the panel, intoxicated about what's going on, right? And get on to that learning journey. And again, based on whatever role, whatever function you are in, I think the question to ask for each one of us, and I do that with myself all the time, is what have you learned today, right? What is the new thing you are taking from here, either in the flow of work or the meetings you are having, or accessing some resources out there which are available in Plante.
Yeah, I would just add, there was a time where you really got a lot of recognition, and your value in the marketplace was how much you know, right? And so folks really seek to just gather as much knowledge as they can and be pretty much know-it-all, almost, like an expert in the field. In the future and the present, it's all about being a learn-it-all. Like someone who is deeply curious. Those folks are going to be the most successful in the new economy. And Deidre, I'll tell you, it's unfair that we haven't heard from your perspective, because you're doing really exciting work at Microsoft. I'll kind of switch it around on you. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we go back to where we started of, the sort of what do you want to be, grow up, what do you want to be when you grow up, scary question. As I'm working with learners and educators in K-12 and higher ed, really embracing that learn it all, embracing the curiosity in the learning process, and looking at the agents and the AI tools that we have as supports for that and enablers of that to go faster in your pursuit of being an astronaut or a marine biologist, or for many of us, making our organizations even more successful, our employee base happier, and enabling our success for our customers, because when our customers do well, we do well.
Great.
We're just at time. I want to thank you, Todd. Thank you, Vishaal, and all of you who joined us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.